construction site here. I tell you what, I work for Cross Construction Company, and I'm the head foreman on this job. They call me a pretty wise builder. I don't know how I got that title, but I guess it's because everything I built stays up. Sometimes when people build things, they fall down. It's kind of like what it talks about in the Bible when it talks about the wise and foolish builders. Now, Jesus said that if you listen to my words and do them, you're like the wise man that built his house upon the rock. And if you listen to the words that I say and you don't do them, then you're like the foolish man that built his house on the sand. Now in the Bible he talks about that. But it kind of reminds me of what happened. This guy goes out and he says, you know what? I'm going to build me a house. And this other guy goes out, and we're going to call him Foolish Fred. And he says, I'm going to build me a house. But there was Wise Willie, he was the other guy. He found him a real place that was, when you look at it, you think, man, it would be hard to build a house here because it's got a lot of rock. Now, Fred, he picked out a place that was pretty sandy. He picked that place because it was easy to dig in. And I mean to tell you, he got after it. He worked hard. And he worked long hours. And he got his house built up in no time. And he kind of looked over the fence over there to Wise Willie's place. And old Wise Willie was still working on his house. I mean, he just barely got the foundation dug. And so he kind of laughed at him, you know. He thought, man, that was funny because old Wise Willie, he hadn't got his house up yet. But old Fred, he kept on laughing and kept on working, but Willie kept on working and building his house, and finally he got it finished, and he moved in, and of course old Freddie had already moved into his house. But something happened about the second night after Willie had moved in. A storm came in. And I want to tell you, the rains, they just poured down. I mean, it was a gully washer. And when those rains came down and filled up the valley, the water started rising. And guess whose house was built right there on the creek bed where it was nice and sandy? Yeah, you guessed it, Foolish Fred. And I want to tell you, after those rains came down for as long as they did, and the winds blew and everything, it didn't take long until old Freddie's house just fell apart and was washed on down the creek. But not Willie's house. Willie's house stood firm because he was wise, and he built his house upon a rock. Now here's what happens. If we listen to the Word of God and do what God says in His Word, then we're like that man, Wise Willie, that built his house on the rock. But if not, if we don't listen to the Word of God, or we don't do what it tells us to do, we're like old Foolish Freddie building our house on the sand, and it is destroyed when the storm comes. So if you want to be safe, when the storms of life come, listen to the Word of God and do what it says. Now, I've got to get back to work because these guys don't work very hard unless I'm over there hollering at them.